So recently I published a video all about the basics of composition and framing, and it was really awesome to see that the video was super helpful for our community and that you guys wanted to see more. And because of that, we decided to do a part 2 on that video, so I thought we could dive into that today. But before we do, what's happening everyone? My name is Ryan, and if you're new with us, welcome. I truly appreciate you being here. All right, let's get into it. We're definitely going to get into more of the techniques that we didn't have a chance to get into in the last video, but if you're anything like me and you would like to know how these techniques will affect the emotion and the tone and the way your audience receives the story, then definitely stay tuned because we're going to go deeper into that. Also, I just wanted to mention again that this is a part 2 of another video that we did, so if you'd like to learn more about this topic, definitely give that a watch after this. But with all of that out of the way, let's dive in. First, I wanted to dive deeper into how composition and framing can affect the story in your films. Filmmaking is all about telling great stories in the form of visuals, and composition and framing are incredible, powerful tools when conveying the mood and the tone and the information that you want your audience to feel and receive without the need to fully rely on dialogue. A well-framed shot can be way more impactful in revealing the character's emotions or intentions than words can if planned out and used intentionally. In composition and framing and good storytelling, it's important to remember that it's about the relationship between all of the elements within the frame that will imply what is happening within the scene. Now, with the addition of all the reasons that we mentioned in the first video, here are 3 more reasons why composition is used in film. The first is cinematic language. Composition and framing are a part of the visual language of cinema. Now, there are many elements that play a part in cinematic language. Things like camera angles, lighting, sound design, and even the actor's performance, just to name a few. And composition is just another really great way of adding to that. And another great way to think about it is really to think that it's just basically the language that we've come to know and expect when watching movies. Filmmakers will use various techniques like the ones we mentioned in the first video, like rule of thirds, depth, and leading lines to create meaning and depth in their stories. Another reason composition and framing are used in film is to create a cohesive vision. Consistent framing and composition, as well as other elements like style, color, audio quality, etc., all of this will help to create a flow that will keep the audience completely engaged in the story. And the third reason that we'll talk about today is the use of symbolism and metaphors. Filmmakers will often place their characters within the frame for a specific symbolic reason. Placing your character off to the side and distant, this could imply that our character is alone or feeling a sense of calmness, while placing your character front and center could imply that this character is important or that they feel like all eyes are on them. It's important to know that all of the elements within your frame will affect the way the audience will receive the information within the scene. This is important because just like the words in a book will inspire our imagination and illustrate the tone and emotion within the story, so too do the visuals, and the intentionality of all of these techniques can really pull us into the story, making us feel like we're in the story with our characters. Now that we fully understand the basics to composition and framing and why we use it in film, here are a few techniques that you could use to tell great visual stories. Number 1, points. Composition is all about directing the viewer's eye to the main point of interest, and using points is a really great way of doing that. This can be used in the form of intersecting points or just one small piece within the frame, and is commonly used in wider shots where you want everything else in the frame to be nice and clean and uncluttered, so that way your eye can really focus on the main point of interest. But this could also be used to highlight a specific item within the scene, because it could really help to focus our attention on that one item, because we might see it later in the film and play a significant part within the story in its entirety. Points can also be used in tandem with the rule of thirds, which we actually talk about in the first video. And as we mentioned in that first video, when using the rule of thirds, it's mainly to highlight the main point of interest, whether it's your character or a detail. But what if you have more than one detail or character within the scene? A great technique would be to use what's called the golden triangle. This is when you have a diagonal line going from one corner of the frame to the next, as well as 2 other lines coming from the opposite corners, creating a main point of interest. This is actually used for when you want the audience to look in the same direction as our characters are, kind of like what I did in this scene here. Now, this is really great when you have more than one person or one detail in the frame that is important that you want your audience to focus on. Another technique that is commonly used when trying to achieve this is the use of shapes. Now, there's many different types of shapes that you could use: circles, triangles, squares. All of them have a different meaning and will give your viewers a sense of a specific feeling within the scene. Using any one of these shapes will focus the audience's attention on the main detail or details that you want them to focus on. Now, there are many ways that we could use shapes, but one of my favorite ways is commonly called the frame within the frame. Now, this is a great way to get a bunch of details in one shot and still have that focus, really closing in on all of those details. Now, it really does depend on the shape that you use and the context of the scene that you're in, and also what your characters are doing and all of that stuff. But this could really change the way that your viewer perceives the story. So definitely have all of this in mind when you're thinking about using shapes within your film. Another simple but very powerful element that you could use to compose the shot is color. Color can not only bring unity to the image, but also help to direct the viewer's eye. This could also be used to highlight a theme within the film as a whole to create a cohesive story. Really, using color is just the way to create even more depth within your scene. Using contrasting colors is a great way of doing this. You'll usually see this in a lot of Hollywood films, the orange and teal look. This is when your skin tones would have that warmer tone and everything else would have a cooler tone, pulling your characters out of the frame a little bit, giving you more of a 3D depth, and even more making us feel like we're there with our characters. Just like black and white, two colors on the opposite side of the color wheel can also add a lot of depth when used together. Again, there is so much more that we can get into about composition and framing. We just can't fit it all into these videos here on YouTube. Things like patterns and texture, focal length and aspect ratios, as well as how to combine all of these techniques to formulate a great scene. So as always, if you have any questions at all, or if you would like to see more videos like this one, then let us know down in the comments below, because I love connecting with you guys and I really just want to help in any way that I can. Like I mentioned before, all of the things that I've covered in this video aren't just technical terms or things to overlook, but instead are creative tools for telling powerful stories. It just takes a little practice and dedication to the craft to get it right. So as always on this channel, I just want to encourage you to grab a few friends, maybe some family members, pick up your camera and just go out and make a film. Well, that's gonna do it for me, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. If you like this video or you learned something, please click the like button down below. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers, friends.